Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to episode 9 of Wirecast Live. It is Thursday, July 7th, 2016, and I am your host, Andrew Haley, the product evangelist for Wirecast and ScreenFlow. Every week, we do this live broadcast to bring to you the latest and greatest information about Wirecast. We talk about in-depth tips, we interview people, we do a lot of different things that you will hopefully have seen if you've tuned in before, and we have a lot more plans to do some fun stuff coming up. So just join us every week. We try to make this a fun, informal place where you can ask questions, and I can try to answer them to the best of my ability, as well as show you what you may or may not know about Wirecast, power tips, and share other information, as well as any updates or news that we might have to share. So hope that's acceptable to you, because that's what we do here. If you're looking for the soup show, you should probably go find a different channel. This is all about live streaming, particularly with Wirecast, and it all started because we integrated with Facebook, and we wanted to take advantage of that and have a very fun place for you guys to come and ask your questions and learn things. We do have a What's New in Wirecast 7 webinar coming up next week, which I believe is going to be on Thursday. And we will be, you can sign up for that. We'll do an hour-long webinar session. That's going to be on our webinar platform. You can find more information about that on the events page at our website. Other side on our website there, the link. Thanks for throwing that up, Deborah Lee. It's going to be Thursday, July 14th, so a week from today. It'll be a little earlier in the day, 11 a.m. Pacific time, and it'll be about an hour. I'll try to cover as much as I can. If you saw last week's broadcast, there was some audio issues. The bandwidth dropped out on us, and then everything was out of sync from that point on. But we did get a more in-sync version of the whole broadcast. It was about an hour that time as well, and we did cover a lot, which I won't have time to go back to too much today. We're just going to move onwards and show some more stuff today. So I encourage you to go back to our Facebook page or check out our Wirecast YouTube page at Wirecast Tube on YouTube, and you can watch last week's broadcast, which was the all about Wirecast 7, kickoff. And we'll be covering new features like that today, as well as probably the next week and for a while. So there's just a lot to cover, and I couldn't get to it all, and I really want to talk about each feature in depth because there's so much that's changed in Wirecast 7, and I think it's all really cool. So hopefully go back and check that out. I encourage you to do that, and you can get some value out of that if you're just learning what's new. That's a great place to start. We also have an awesome getting started video that Lucas Bischofberger did. So if you're brand new to Wirecast and this is your first time using it, definitely use that video as your resource. It's less than 10 minutes, and he'll get you up and running really quickly with some of the features in Wirecast 7. As for today, let's talk about what we're going to cover, and then we'll take time for questions. If you do have a question, just post it in the comment section here, and we'll throw that up on screen. We can live capture that right on the screen using Wirecast, and I can answer questions directly. As we go forward, if there's anything that I'm showing that you have a question about, I'll keep an eye on those comments. And I see a couple of you have already commented here. So Ulysses, welcome. Michael, welcome. Great to learn. All right, Ulysses, that's awesome. I'm excited to teach you some more about Wirecast 7. And it looks like, Mike, any tips or tricks based on the sync issues from last week that would help us avoid the same issue when we stream? Good question. So the tip on that is actually what happened there was the bandwidth was interrupted at our network level here at Telestream, and that's because we used one of our internal networks, which there might have been something going on either somewhere else in the company or somewhere else in the building. Somebody was using it, or maybe our internet provider was just wasn't able to provide a constant level for a second. Maybe something dropped out. So there's not much that I can offer you to do that. If you do notice that things are out of sync and you have somebody who's quality checking for you and it's just noticeable, then you might want to actually stop the broadcast and restart it. But that can lead to its own complications. You may have to create a new stream event, and people might have to find the new video. So there's good and bad to both. The best way, with Facebook, you may not get packet. There's certain technologies when you stream to your own private servers that you can use that verify packets sent from one place to another. That's not so much the case with large companies like like Facebook, you may not be able to have on both ends, both the transmitting end and the receiving end, to make sure that everything is in sync and all the packets got where they needed to go. And when your bandwidth goes out on you, your bandwidth goes out on you, and that's just kind of the basic level there. You could, in theory, set up two systems and try, both having network connections. Sites like Facebook, sites like YouTube, and some of the others out there allow you to have a backup destination point, so you can actually split your signal and stream simultaneously from two different systems. And they could be on different networks, and you could stream. If your first network goes down and you've got a different provider with a different network, you're still streaming to the same point, the same destination point, and then it'll automatically roll over if the first one disappears. Facebook's not that advanced yet, and so it doesn't have backup streaming destinations, to my knowledge. And so, if you're really, really, really concerned about uptime and making sure that nothing ever goes down, then it's all about redundancy, redundancy, redundancy. Here, because we are streaming to Facebook and we just use our main broadcast system, we haven't set up a major redundancy setup, because this stuff is critical. But if it goes out on us, we'll just stream tomorrow or the next day or in a couple hours. It's not a big deal. But that may not be the case for something you're trying to stream, and in that case, you'll definitely want to set up at least 1 or 2 or 3 levels of safeties. So, good question there, Mike. And Mike, you also asked if you can record your stream. If you recorded, could you just post that after the live event and not have the sync issue? Yeah, that's exactly what we did. We did record a local copy where there was no sync problems, and we did upload that. And I uploaded that. It took a little longer, so I think I got it up on Friday, the next day, just because there was some issues with our the way we're recording it, because we are actually externalizing it to an external recorder, and we're still figuring out which systems we want to use to edit that. But that's a great way to do it as well. You can just upload the final version as well. So Wirecast is great that way, because if your bandwidth goes out on you, you still have a local recording, and it doesn't take too long to just re-upload that. So that's a very simple way to do it as well. That's awesome. No worries, Mark. We're glad to sponsor that. And Mike, no worries. You're already on it, sounds like. So I don't have much to tell you there. But if you, if there's anything else, please just comment. I'll feel free to take those questions. I'll take those questions as I can as we go forward today. All right, so let's talk about what's new I'm going to pull up my desktop here so you can see. So the best place to go for this and talk about what new features have been released in this version is our website, and you can go to telestream.net/Wirecast. I'm going to pull that up. What's new? .htm. It's very easy. Click on the What's New section of the Wirecast part of our webpage, and that'll take you to this page. And we covered this yesterday. We kind of just started going down the list and covered as much as we could, and so that's what I'll keep doing today. And jump back. The main thing we focused on last time was the dynamic editor, which, for those of you who are watching, everything's changed the way you handle, well, I should say, you still handle clips in a lot of the same ways, but where you handle it and what that looks like and the underlying technology behind it has changed quite a bit. And so we have this new thing in Wirecast 7 called the dynamic editor, and the shot properties area. That this used to be a standalone window. You had to double click on every shot. Now it is built into the UI. It's really slick, very effective. You can even click in the preview window and drag things around and reposition them. So there is a lot of feedback between this window and the settings here on the left, which is just a new way of working. Before, all this was contained in a single window in Wirecast 6. So that's in a totally standalone separate window. And that's kind of what we focused on. We added, I just showed you how you could add properties and, or you could change properties, you could add shots, and then the types of shots you could add. So what I'll do is, we'll obviously be using that today and showing, because it's really at the heart of how everything gets configured and changed and edited in Wirecast and how shots get moved around and so forth. But it's, we'll focus on other parts of it that we didn't focus on so much. And then I will also try to get a little bit more into talking about some of these lower down features on this page. So just a few to talk about. I'd like to talk about the video sync, how that works, how you might sync up different video sources to make sure that they are, either the audio or the video are all coming in at the same time. We're also going to talk a little bit about the audio mixer, where you can find that. And I'd like to really also dial in on new ways of configuring text. We're going to talk about NewBlue today. Everybody who buys Wirecast 7 or upgrades to Wirecast 7 gets a free copy of NewBlue Titler FX. So while I probably won't do a full tour of that today, I'm going to at least show you where it is, how to get it, and how to install it, and then what it does as basically, as I can. So stay tuned for that. And that should give us plenty to talk about today, and we'll see how far we get. Duncan, good to see you. Yeah, so Terry, good question. Is Wirecast 7 comes with new lower thirds? The same lower thirds that Wirecast 6 had and 5 before that. The same template library is still in there, but in addition to that, we've packaged in or bundled in a copy of NewBlue's Titler Live Express, which is we had previously partnered with them. You could buy that software as a standalone, but now, and it was a $99 add-on to Wirecast. Now it's free with Wirecast 7, so you do have access to a lot more dynamic titles and libraries that they provide and NewBlue creates, and they're professional graphics designers and titlers, so they know what they're doing, and they can create some really cool stuff that they just hand to you in that software. And if you want to start making your own using their software, you can upgrade to different versions. So that's what we'll focus on today. So yeah, there's definitely new stuff there, the 3D animated titles, which is what we'll talk about as well. All right, so let's start with, we're going to jump up here to, so that's the NewBlue. We'll talk about that in a second. Let's jump up to video sync and so forth, and then we'll come back and circle back to some stuff. And then we'll talk about it all kind of as it interrelates. So the first thing that I want to show, or we'll just jump back into, is if you remember last week, we talked about how this list here of adding sources has really changed. It's we've basically consolidated everything, and this is where you can now add all types of new sources. And one of the things I talked about was the solid color generator, where you can actually just make your own color, set the size, a box of any size and so forth, and set any color that you want for it using the palette that's provided. And it has the color numbers and all of the, so you can set web compatible colors and so forth. And if I go up to, say down to the yellow, something like that, we make a yellow box. You can do that. Hit OK, and now I've got this, solid color background or so forth that I can move around and reposition, and it's just a source. So the same thing applies for all these other types of sources. As you create them, they will then be assigned to a layer in a shot, and when you click on them, so if we were to say make a, we'll add our camera here. Got the XI100 USB capture card from Magewell, bringing in this other camera right next to the one that you're seeing me on. So I can bring that in, and again, depending on which one I click, that is the shot that I can edit in the shot editor, the dynamic editor. And so switching back and forth, you'll see that, and then that it changes, and each of these shots has one layer. You can, of course, still add additional layers inside of each one of these, and I believe this is almost unlimited. I think it's currently you can add up to 50 of them per shot, so you could have 50 additional sources in here, including another text or screen box. We could add a title. These are the previous titles that we have always included free with Wirecast, this template library here. So we could bring in something like a ribbon title or an aqua title. Let's do ribbon, we'll pull that in. And you've still got access to that. You'll notice that each title now comes in as 3 separate elements. It's got the text box itself, which can be turned off using these little eye icons. And then, of course, the ribbon element, which is sort of the background element, or it's a layer you might design in Photoshop or something like that and bring in. So that's all very similar to the way things have worked in Wirecast. It's just you're now doing it all on the left here in the dynamic editor. And then the other thing we talked about last week was how this area, I mean, these other types of properties should be very familiar to you, but where things change very frequently is this last tab here, which is the object properties. So which are contextual depending on what type of object or shot you've selected. So the source here is the ribbon text title. That's what I have selected on my screen. And so that's going to be different in terms of what I can do. It's going to show me editing properties. I can change the text and the font and the style and all that. And that's very different from, say, if I select the background image, which is just my live camera. And that's going to have, color space settings and resolution and so forth. It's also going to have the FPS and the frame rates and so forth. This is very similar to almost exactly what you saw in the source settings. You'll notice that there is no more sources menu up here. So if I pull that up, hold on, let's make sure you can see that. I'm going to go to my system preferences real fast, and maybe I can back that off so you can see it better. Okay, so let's go to the system preferences. Let's tab through here. And I'm going to pull up the displays real fast. Let me underscan this just a little bit. I'll make sure you can see the menu bar. Okay, that should be accurate, hopefully. So now you can see that, the menu bar here. So if I scroll in here and pull this up, you can see right along the menu here that there are there's no sources menu. We used to have a sources menu right next to the output menu. And that's where you could add sources. You could also configure sources. Well, all of that configuration and management of sources has been brought into this dynamic editor window. So again, the shot editor this dynamic editor has kind of combined two features that were in Wirecast 6 that were separated in their own types of windows and have now been combined into kind of a single area of Wirecast. So all of your configuration and stuff is going to be done in the Properties tab here for each source that you're working on. You no longer need to go to a separate isolated window, which makes things very convenient, but you might be a little confused if you're wondering, where do I do all that configuration stuff? That's all happening here now inside the Wirecast UI. The other thing that you'll notice is, let's say we wanted to add another solid color. You'll notice this drop-down pop-up. This is very similar to the sources that you saw before. So you used to be able to access this anytime, and you kind of saw a very similar layout when you were in the source settings window. So you'll see there's still some elements here, but this is more of a drop-down, one off, one at a time per source window that only ever pops up when you're adding one. And you need to be aware that you need to be very careful when you are adding a new source. The first thing it's going to ask you is, are you selecting an existing color, or do you need to generate a new one? And depending on what you select, you're going to get a different option. So in this case, if I select the existing color, then that is a source that's already added. So Wirecast isn't going to do twice the work and do two generations of the same color. It's going to say, oh, you just want another yellow box? Sure, well, we already have one. It's already defined as a source, so why not just add that? And now you have basically the same source, but you can move it to somewhere else, just like you did before. If you have the same camera and we add, say, another capture camera of the same source, I can do whatever I want to this one without affecting the other instance of it, even though it's coming from the exact same camera. Hope that makes sense. So that, again, is just stuff that I want to clarify for people who are coming to Wirecast 7 from 6 and before. If you're new to 7, then this may not seem that strange to you or unusual, but if you've been using Wirecast for a long time, as I hope many of you have, then it's my job to try to tell you this stuff and show you where things are now arranged in 7. All right, let's take a quick break here. I just want to check on your comments and see if I'm getting your questions or if I'm missing the point. So, scrolling through here, we got... Are there any plans to incorporate? So Mark asks, is there any plans to incorporate a full playlist system? So I'm assuming you mean timing, scheduling, calendars, and that sort of thing, which we really define as a scheduler. And Wirecast, that's definitely been talked about quite a bit as a scheduling function or component to Wirecast. So you can kind of set your broadcast day and walk away, and knowing that certain pieces are going to come on at certain times. You can do that to a certain extent using what the tools are already in Wirecast. So with playlist, for example, you can time everything out in a playlist. And this is cool as well. So let's say we want to drag different sources into the playlists. I'm just going to drag and drop these guys into this playlist shot. Now when you open the playlists, they don't open in their own window anymore automatically, which is, again, another convenience for you guys. You aren't having to move a whole separate window around or jump around. You've got just this easy tabbed playlist system, which is really cool. So you can't currently break the playlist out, but you can, or you can't just drag it out of it and make a new window, but you can move to a new window. So if you really still prefer this method of working, this is how it worked in Wirecast 6, then you still have that available to you, but it's not the default anymore. And I like this a lot better. I like the fact that when I double click one, it just opens in a new tab. Very handy. And then you have these tabs along the user interface, which are really useful. And to your point about playlisting and scheduling, you can time things out so that when you change the duration of a shot, you can basically tell it when it's going to start playing and so forth. There's a lot of power here, and you would still need to start the broadcast at the right time, but then it's going to roll through the playlist. If you've timed everything out, then as long as you start at the right time, it should end at the correct time as well. So in a sense, you can do some scheduling. But as far as an actual more of a calendar style format where you can really set when Wirecast starts broadcasting, when it stops broadcasting, and so forth, you'd have to use third-party tools and send Wirecast commands to do that, which can be done using the scripting API, but it's not built into Wirecast as a function or a user interface tool. All right, so I hope that makes sense for you, Mark. So Ed asks, is acceleration on AMD ATI graphics cards supported? So you're thinking of Mac Pro, iMac, etc. Acceleration, hardware accelerated encoding is currently available for Intel QuickSync technology and chips with Intel graphics processing, as well as NVIDIA NVENC encoding. And there's no ATI or AMD hardware acceleration in Wirecast at this time. So if you have a Mac, a lot of those do have QuickSync somewhere, and when it says Apple hardware encoding, which I will show you since we're talking about it, you go to the output settings and you select, we'll just do a generic RTMP server, hit OK, and you select your type of encoding here. You can choose from the whether it's going to be Apple H.264 or X.264. So this list here, which is a long default list, but anything with X.264 next to it in the name, if you're on Mac, is going to mean it's a software CPU-based encoding, and you can get very good results with this. You get more fine-tuned control over the encoding process. But the cost is that you're going to be using more CPU. Now with with Apple H.264, this is Apple's version of QuickSync. It means that on your computer you have a QuickSync chip, and on your processor or in your graphics component, which is made by Intel, and Apple can access that using Apple H.264. So those will be the difference between the types of encoding you get. And if we go to details, if you choose main concept H.264, this is a software-based encoder, which is similar to X264. This is all CPU. There's no hardware acceleration. And on Windows, this is very similar. You'll see, except on Windows, it's not going to be called Apple X264. It's going to be called X264 QuickSync NVENC. So it's much more specifically named to those types. For you Mac users, then you're looking for Apple H.264. And then as far as NVENC on Apple, I believe we have NVENC. I just don't have an NVIDIA chip in this computer, so I don't think we're seeing it on the list. But I'll need to double check on that. I just want to make sure. I know it's definitely there on Windows. Pretty sure it's also there on Mac, but I'll just need to check. For now, this Apple H.264 is usually what you're looking for hardware accelerated encoding. And as far as ATI, not at this time. All right. You guys have a lot of good questions, so I'm glad I'm able to answer these. Looks like we're up to 30 views, so welcome. If you're just joining us, we're covering more features and what's new with Wirecast 7. Leave a comment or a question on the Facebook page. We're just answering those, and then I'll be going through other features as we have time or as they relate to the questions. I'm going to take a quick sip of my tea here. Okay. Duncan from Australia. All right. Welcome, Duncan. And so, let's see. And then, Deborah Lee, if you could put me on the screen, that'd be good so I can keep talking to folks as we answer questions. And I'll get out of the way here. Thanks if we need to show something where I'm in the way. So you've been using Wirecast for about 3 years. That's great. Hope you're liking Wirecast 7 if you've had a chance to play around with it. A teleprompter. Michael's asking for a teleprompter inside the program. At this time, we don't have plans for a teleprompter in Wirecast. Usually teleprompters go right in front of the camera so you can look at the camera and read the prompt. And Wirecast doesn't have any prompting technology, but there's really simple, easy to use setups. You can use an iPad and a little mirror, one-way mirror, and they don't cost a ton of money, and you can get a pretty cheap, affordable teleprompter that work well, from what I understand. There's also some good websites like promptme.com, I think, promptme.net, something like that. So look that up. I know of some student organizations and student broadcasters that use free tools like that. NDI integration, look for it by the end of the year. Hopefully as soon as possible, because NDI is amazing and we really want to take advantage of that and let you guys all use it. So look for that. A playlist for music and or videos. Really easy to do that using the playlists that are already in Wirecast. So just create a new playlist anywhere on any layer. If it's music, throw it down on layer 4 or 5, and you can loop through your MP3s, add as many as you like, and it'll just play them back to back. You even have a cool shuffle feature. So if you don't want to play them in the same order every time, you've got this really neat shuffle option. So you can just mix everything around and it won't be the same. Bear in mind that once you shuffle, you can't go back. So you can't go back to a default. The new playlist is just going to be what it is. If you need to keep a default order of something, or order is very important to you, maybe make 2 copies of the playlist and only play the shuffle, one for shuffling, and keep the other one in the order you want. So great questions, but I don't see... as far as the playlist goes, you've already got all that in Wirecast, and that came with Wirecast 6 and has continued into Wirecast 7. We've also improved playlist features, and we'll continue to improve that because that was brand new in 6, and so we're building off that. You'll notice we've got this new box that just says resume, which basically means does the playlist resume from where it left off? You know, if you take it from out of the live window back to preview and then you go back live, is it going to start from the beginning of the playlist, or is it going to... resume from where it left off? Very similar to when you have media shots, remember position when media is not live. All right, so let's go up. That was Mark again. Let's go to the next question here. I may not be able to get to all these if I answer all the questions directly. You guys are asking a lot of great ones. Okay. Glad I could help you there, Roland. Did anything change in the replay system? Yes, some stuff did change in replay. I will cover that. It's a little more complex, so we'll have to maybe table it for the moment. And then might have been covered, but what about the Photoshop layer support? Haven't covered that specifically. If you bring in a PSD file, I don't think Wirecast currently respects those natively. You should change it into a PNG file or a TIFF file or something like that. PSD direct into Wirecast, I'm pretty sure is not going to work. Scott, glad you're liking Wirecast 7. It's always wonderful to hear when you guys are enjoying the upgrades. And then Duncan, you're recommending a good teleprompter software, so thanks. This is Prompt It. That sounds like, okay, so you guys should check that out if you're looking for a good prompter. All right, so and then After Effects from Yuda, can you add a graphic effects or from After Effects? Yeah, you can absolutely export a QuickTime animation file or a ProRes file with alpha, I think ProRes 444, and those should work great in Wirecast and respect any of the transparencies. All right, so let's continue with our tour of the interface here. And what I want to talk about is some other sources that you can add. So let's delete these shots. We kind of talked about the editor and how the properties adds and how that the source settings has been subsumed into this window, this object properties tab, and it's also where when adding sources, it still comes down as a pop-up, but that's really the only time you see it. So keep that in mind when you are using Wirecast 7, how that's changed. But what about some of the other things you can add now? So let's talk about, well, let's just start with Titler Live. It's right up at the top there. So we're going to start with, any of your live devices should be here, but Titler Live, and how do you get it to appear on this list? You may not have Titler Live. If you haven't installed it, you wouldn't see it on this list. So where do you go? What do you do to get Titler Live, your free copy of Titler Live? Well, if you've bought Wirecast or upgraded to it, you should have gotten a link to download it and install. But if you didn't or you missed that somehow, go back to that receipt or that email, and you can find the link there. Otherwise, head over to telestream.net. And go to the download section of our webpage. And that is going to be at the bottom. I'm just going to scroll down here. At the bottom of the website, right under miscellaneous, you can find the download section. And you can click on the Wirecast download page. And that'll prompt you for your login and download information. And you're also going to do, didn't fail to log me in, hold on. Let's pull this in real fast. But if you log into your download account, you should be able to download it really easily. And then, here we go, get to this page here. So this is where you can always download previous versions of the software, as well as download the latest. You can also download it for Windows or Mac, the other operating system, if you need to. And you can also find any of the supplemental downloads like NewBlue Titler Express. You've got Wirecast Cam and Desktop Presenter. So great place to go to make sure you get that. And I just recommend you download it, the version you need here for NewBlue Titler. So download the one you want, and that will get a download going. I think it's about 200 megabytes or so. And then when it has officially finished downloading, you will open on your computer here, open the folder, open the zip file, or the compressed file, and that's going to just give you a file that looks like this. All right, it should have an installer or an exe on Windows or a package on Mac that you can then install. So double click that to install, and you'll be taken through the installation process. And you click through agreements and so forth, and at that point, it's going to ask you where and how much you want to install. And at this point, with all the templates and libraries and so forth, it's going to take, once it's uncompressed, it takes up a little more space. So it's about 700 megabytes or so on here. And then you install it. That'll take you through the install. You'll need to restart the computer so all those plug-in stuff and the software stuff works together. You will need to restart, so I'm not going to go through the entire installation here. But when you're done, you should be able to open Wirecast. And I'm going to actually delete all this. Should be able to open Wirecast and see Titler Live as a source here that you can add. So click that to add it. And that will launch the Titler Live software, which works in unison with Wirecast. All right, so it's getting configured as a source. You can name it. You can call it Titler Live. And what's cool about this is Titler Live is like an overlay. It's almost like a camera that you can throw, a camera that you can see through parts of the image and just have, the live titles. And you can queue up a whole playlist of titles in the software. And then they also have great help sections. So they've got a really wonderful support and everything. So if you click on the help, you can be taken to their website, which will take you to this link here. And there's some great videos and tutorials on how to activate it if you're not familiar with how to activate it, and how to get started using Titler Live Express, choosing templates and so forth. So I recommend going through this and taking time to educate yourself. One thing, in order to activate the software, once you've installed it, I forgot to do this to show you this. There's another step here. There's what's called the application manager, where you will basically sign up for a free account with an email address. And then it's going to, once you log in, this is your activation, it is your license for the software itself. So keep that in mind. This sort of title manager, app manager, you can sign out on any computer or sign back in, and then you have access to your Titler Live software. So as long as you have the software installed on any computer, you can always log in or out of your own account, and that will activate the software. And that's it. You just need an email address to be active because it's free. Okay, so the manager should be activated and you should be signed into your account through NewBlue, but that is what gives you permission to use it in Wirecast. So let's go to Titler Live. I'm going to just go to Titler Live, and if you click on this, that's going to launch the software itself. They have this really handy tutorial slide, which is just part of the software that teaches you what to do or kind of gets you started really fast. So if you follow the tips along here, it's pretty straightforward. Basically, you launch Titler Live from Wirecast Properties, which is part of the Properties tab. It's easy to launch. And then you can search the layered library for whatever titles you want and drag them down to your playlist in Titler Live. And then you can edit or customize any of those designs and then go live by clicking the Go Live in Wirecast. And then you can animate in or out any of those sources on your Wirecast or your playlist inside Titler Live into Wirecast using some controllers. So let's just look at that really quickly. So I'm going to launch this is the Titler Live software. I'm in NewBlue Titler Live. You can see up in my menu bar here. So that tells me which software I'm in. And it's going to look like a Wirecast window, the way it's sort of configured. There's so keep that in mind. and they've designed it to make it look and act and work with Wirecast, so it's similar looking. And you have a whole different library of titles and so forth that you can preview through. So here are just a few of their lower thirds. All of these you have access to, so look at that. It really expands the capabilities that you have access to in Wirecast, and all of them are animated and 3D. All right, so very cool stuff. So let's say we want to look at we've got spectrum and stratosphere, which is cool. And I might try, let's do the spectrum. I kind of like that one. We'll pull that down. You just drag it down to your playlist in Titler Live, and it'll just build here. It's just rendering it on the graphics card. And we can basically change the title. And I'm just going to put in my name and position here. And then we can preview it in once it's done building. And you can preview it out. And just that's how it builds in and builds out. And that alone is basically your playlist. And I can delete this slide here. I don't want it. And now I've got this source in Wirecast pretty much ready to go. Going to add it as a shot. And this new shot is built and it's tied directly to the playlist. It's basically creating a playlist of titles, and that could just be a single title. It could be 10 titles. It doesn't really matter. And you could create as many of those as you like. So very similar to Wirecast, just each one could be a playlist, or it's just a playlist of a single title. And if we take that live, and make this larger, using our Go button, then the title should just build in or build out, depending on which one you've got. So if we take that live, there it is. Now, if I make this, depending on what your play button in NewBlue Titler Live Express is, it's going to do different. It's going to control what's active in Wirecast at different times. So it's whether it's ready to go or whether you queue it or so forth. But kind of cool. Now, if we press the button again, we can move it off screen. Now it's yellow again. Yellow means it's queued and ready to go, and it's not on screen. Red means it's building and it's live, and yellow, so forth. So we can build it in or out just using this as our software. Now, if we click to a different shot in Wirecast, that should also activate the build out. And if we bring it back in, it's just going to come in. And that's because we are red with it there. So it's up to you how you want to operate the Live Titler Express software, whether you want to use this if you have multiple titles. For example, if we brought in a second title, I could use one of the main titles up here. Click on that. And I've got a bunch of cool ones. Ones that also match what you're already doing. So if we also want to do a spectrum, we could do that, which is cool. So why don't we choose this? We'll drag spectrum. We'll keep everything in the same theme, but you could jump around. There's different themes. NewBlue also recently came out with a pack that's all social media based, and I think we're going to have them on the show to talk about it. It's really, really cool. It has all your links for Twitter and animations for Facebook and Instagram and so forth. So anything that you're trying to reach out to people and you want to animate those titles on screen during live broadcast, they've already built all of that for you, and it makes it look super cool, and it's a great way to increase engagement and outreach. And we'll probably be using some of those on our show coming forward here as well, because we love what they're doing at NewBlue. All right, so here I have what's called a full title or a main title, which is really more of a main screen thing, and it's different from a live, it's different from a lower third, which is going to just really be a title at the bottom of the screen. This is designed to be front and center. So let's modify it so we can do what we want with it. So first I'm going to type in, so this might be good for like your segment or the show that you're doing, and we could also say Thursdays at 2:30 Pacific Daylight Time. And the last thing we need to do is just, and I love this about NewBlue, is they make it really easy just to add a graphic. They've already done the work. You just need to replace the picture with whatever it is you're trying to bring in. So I'm just going to add that. And there it is. So let's preview that in and out. See how easy that was? It looks so professional, and it took me literally 10 seconds of work here. So I highly recommend checking this out. This is free to you if you use Wirecast 7. Play around with this and start adding it to your projects and your live broadcasts and really take things up a notch. If you want more information on NewBlue and how it works and all that, you can head over to our, the NewBlue site section of our webpage. It'll tell you all about expressed, standard, advanced, and ultimate editions. It'll give you videos to look at on what they can do, how to use it, and they'll also give you, I believe, a feature breakdown as well, so you can tell you what it does. You can also head over to newblueeffects.com, and let's go to, newblueeffects.com. And if you click on their products section, live titling, you can get more information there about the different versions. And they have a different feature matrix as well that you can look at. That tells you all the things you can do and what you can get. You can also buy additional titles and packs and templates like their social media pack, their sports pack, which has scoreboards and lots of other cool stuff. So check them out. Highly recommend it. At least get started with your Live Titler Express because it's free to you if you own Wirecast 7. And as you can see from what I just showed you, it's pretty cool. It's going to really make it fun to use Wirecast and up the game of your broadcasts. All right, so that covers Titler Live. And if you want to, if there's anything else I can answer about that, please ask a question. I'm happy to talk about it and explore it some more. So I had a chance to play around with that a little bit today, and we'll be using it. I think you'll be seeing a lot of their stuff in our broadcasts because we like their stuff so much. All right, yeah, that's true. So we've got a couple more questions, looks like. Let's talk about this from Mark again. Mark, you've been asking a lot of good questions. Why is it that when I convert audio or video to an audio or video file to what Wirecast will recognize, it still won't play or recognize it? Sounds like a support question. Send us a copy of the file or Dropbox it to us, and our support team can check it out and answer it for you. That really depends on the media framework that is underlying Wirecast. It changes from what it can handle. And there have been some changes, so it may be that a certain file type that used to be compatible may no longer for certain reasons, but they can tell you more specifics and test it for you. And if it's something that we should be supporting, then they can let the product team know as well. And a feature request from Michael. Can we have some type of tools as blur or highlight on parts of the screen? For that, I would use... Well, I mean, if you need to do it live, then how would I do that? Yeah, that's a good feature request. I'd say in Wirecast 6 you could add some filters that might do that. With Wirecast 7, the filters are more useful, but there's fewer of them, and adding things like blur and so forth may not be possible. If you don't need to do it live, use our ScreenFlow tool if you're on Mac. That has great blur and call-out features that you can add to videos and screen stuff. But if you need to do it live, I think we may just need to add that as a feature request. So good question. I will talk with the team about that and how you might accomplish that. Think about more. Good suggestion. All right, let's talk about some of the other stuff that you can do in Wirecast 7. So scrolling in here and going down our list, we talked about solid color. Let's talk about text. I mentioned that this is different from titles. Titles is our built-in, static library of titles, and they're great for what they do. But if you need to make something a little fancier, or you should definitely, or animate something, you should definitely look at Titler Live or building something in After Effects, or however you want to do that. What is text, and how does it interrelate to these other two categories? Let's talk about that. Okay, so text is a live text, live type tool, and what do I mean by that when I say it? This is going to become let's make a new one, and we're just gonna call it live text. We can set a height and a width, which in this case I'd like to be 1280, I think. Oh, maybe 1920. And then we'll do 10. And then the height is up to you, how big you want the box to be. And it's gonna be like, hello. You're basically creating a live text box that any changes you make will be live. And I need to, and you can choose your source, whether it's text that you type in or paste into this box, whether it's a file. So if you have a text file on your hard drive, we could do that real quick. Let's do a text edit. And I know you're probably going to ask me about Word files. I haven't tested Word files, so at this point, it may just be rich text or simple text files. I'm not sure if Word docs are compatible with that. But let's say you have a whole list of names here, but for now, let's just go hello world and save it on our hard drive. Delete, sorry. And save, Command D. We'll call this hello world. Okay, so we'll just save this rich text document on our desktop here, and we could point this to it very easily by selecting the location. So we go to the desktop, choose the hello world file, and open it. It will open in the text file, and it looks like it's also going to throw in any of the header information in the file itself. So that might be, you may need to do a simple text file. And you can choose the color and size and font and all of that. There's a lot of different options here. But if you want to change it to say 65, hit OK. And now if we take that live, you can see you've got this. I'm actually going to make this, change this around. But you've got this text box that you've basically created using this property. Now, you don't, and we pointed it to this file. So that's why you're getting all this extra font here. So keep in mind, we should play around with that, whether it's rich text or simple text. But I think if we just stay with the simple, we don't have a complicated file here, and the formatting is going to be pretty straightforward for this. We can choose whether to line wrap or how big it is. We can even choose whether we want to scroll or crawl this text, which is really cool. So do this. On change, you can even choose whether to fade the text out. So if we added a camera, we'll do a camera here. And now we want to transition over to let's do I'm going to add this is the scroll and direction. We want to go left to right. And then you can set a speed for it as well. So if it's 2, we could double the speed of that. And maybe even a little faster. Let's make it 100. And then it will just wrap. You can create a scrolling thing here. That basically, if we throw this underneath, you can have this very cool animated sort of crawl or scroll. And it's going to look like the text is actually passing from your preview to your live window as it changes across the screen. That's just because these are right next to each other. But this is what your audience sees on the right, and it'll just start again in an infinite scroll. And we can take it on or off. And you can see there's the fade. It's a 5-second fade as we change it in or out. Any changes I make to this text are going to be live. So let me pull this over this direction. This is our live window. So anything you can see, if I type here, if I check it, hello world, I'm hungry, you see that's coming on the screen live, and the audience would see any as I type the letters. So it's live text. It's not a static title. When you choose text, maybe we should change the title to live text. That's what it means. And that can be handy if you want dynamic updates. If you have, for example, an RSS feed or subscription, you can paste the RSS feed, and any new updates or news feeds can be scrolling or crawling across the bottom, and Wirecast will pull those in real time. So it's a really neat way to increase the engagement and dynamic responsiveness of your broadcasts. But be careful, because any changes you make are going to happen live. And that includes everything from color to font to whatever you use. So be aware. And let me do this one. There we go. And that's the difference between, say, a title and a text line or a text source in Wirecast 7, as well as, say, NewBlue, which allows you more of the preview method. You can see even just dragging my eyedropper tool here is going to make the changes live. So you can almost do some cool stuff here if you're twiddling around on the side here, but and your audience will go, wow, that text is really cool. It's kind of changing colors as you do that. That's all happening real time. Any questions about that tool? Does Wirecast 7, this is from Ben, reduce GPU, CPU usage for multiple streams, i.e. a YouTube, RTMP, and a 720 to Facebook and so forth? There is some optimization for using the same encoding settings. So if you have two destinations with the exact same settings, then there's some optimization, and there's actually more coming, where eventually Wirecast should just be able to use entirely the same version for both. But for now, it's not a total complete, what you call fan-out encoding or pool encoding. It's not totally complete yet on that. So more coming with that, but for now, you'll usually add 5 to 10% more per an encoding destination. Will we support embedded 608 and 708 captioning? Again, that's a highly requested feature, Mark, and it's a good question. We are, I think, actively looking into it. I'm not sure where we're at yet with it, but I would be surprised if a lot more time went by without getting captioning support of some kind. So we're definitely looking into it. It's on the list for sure, especially as more compliance laws come into being around captioning. But right now it doesn't support it. It doesn't look for captions, so they don't get passed through Wirecast. How do I support, this is from Mark, what is the best method? Oh, sorry, from Monty. How do I duplicate text? How to do duplicate text scene and edit it without affecting the original scene. So if you want to do live text and you want to duplicate it without affecting the original, you could try duplicating the shot and change this one. That is live. If we jump back to this one, they're the same. So there's not much that you can do from that. You'd probably want to, because text, that's just the way that works, you're probably going to want to create a new text source instead of editing an existing one, and then just change the settings. I think I'll probably put in a feature request that you should be able to duplicate them, and it should spin off a new instance of that. For now, duplicating really means duplicating it, and it's the same one because that's just the unique properties of text, of live text. So even though this one's in the preview, and if we were to say change the color to blue, it's going to jump because it's considered the same source. So at this time, if you want to duplicate a live text source, just make a new one and just copy. Remember, all the settings are there. You'll just need to set them the same. But there's no quick copy paste type thing unless you were to, jump back and forth. What's the best method for showing worship songs as an overlay? Say 2 lines of the song at the same time. You could try setting a box like this, a text box, a live text box, and then copying the hymn passage, or the words to the song in there, and then just setting your crawl rate so it matches. Otherwise, if you need to manually advance it, the timing's not going to work out. That's the tricky part, is the timing. So if I'm trying to think if there's another way you might do it. If that's probably your best bet. Is setting the timing rate. Otherwise, you've got to manually do it, and that's fine. But it's gonna either it's either going to show somebody operating the software as you do it, or you need to do kind of what we're doing with like our Facebook comments here, which we're doing a live capture of the screen, and Deborah Lee, who's in the studio, can manually advance those by scrolling up or down with the mouse, and you could do the same thing with him. So yeah, just a great example. But she's using her mouse to do that, and so you could easily do that and just as you listen to the song. But to actually set text that is perfectly timed to the song, you'd need to generate that some other way, and then play it as a source or a movie file that's already timed with the song. But if you're trying to generate all that on your own, then you're going to need to operate it manually, or your timing's not going to be perfect. A download link for Windows 7. I assume you mean for Wirecast 7. Your best bet is to head over to dynamic .telestream. Let's see. Hold on. Just go to the downloads page on Telestream's website, which is right here. There's the address. I can copy that and put it into... let's do that here for you guys. I'll put it in the comment section. There you go. Alrighty, that is live text. And there's a lot more. It's a really complex tool. There's a lot going on there. You can, from what I understand, you know, get pretty complicated with it. So keep, if I learn more tips on how it works, I will share those here. But that's, my best stab at it for now to show you how it's working, and just keeping in mind that how it's different from the other two types of titles, or NewBlue titles and so forth. Okay, let's move down the list a little bit here and talk about, well, you should know about remote desktop presenters. Scoreboards, those are a pro feature. Actually, can you pull me full screen again, Deborah Lee, so we can see, so I'm out of the way of this. Okay, so this scoreboards are basically unchanged from 6. There's not much that we've done here as far as looking at. You should recognize all these controls from the source settings window and configuration, and you can add your own custom images if you want to design those for scoreboards. And then NewBlue has better designed scoreboards and things like that in their more advanced versions of the software, so you can upgrade to those for scoreboards. That's another way to get score data, or a good looking scoreboard. But these are the ones, very similar, nothing's changed there. You've also got web display. This is an interesting one, and very similar to the text tool. This is if you need to bring in a specific URL or something like that, and again, I'm not an expert here, but let's say there's a certain URL you want to bring in and just have a display or a carousel or something like that with an image. Pretty neat. You can type in a URL. So let's say we do and you can bring in google.com. You can also set the size, so we can make that 1920 by 1080. And this is going to treat Wirecast very much like a browser. And then there's CSS commands that you can put in there. And I'm not a CSS user, so I don't know that. You choose a transparent background or not. Those are options. Hit OK. Bring that in, and you basically have your own. You can show any web page really simply. So we could do the same thing and change that to telestream.net. And there you go. You can pull that full screen. So it's a pretty cool tool. And there's a lot you can do with it. If you want to just show a web page in the corner, there's, from what I understand, a lot of things that can be done with this. And you may want to have like a donation link or tab or page. You may want to have some sort of image, carousel, or some sort of GIF. If you have, say, like a funny GIF that you want to play in the corner, you can just link to that, and it will play in the corner. So if you have like a rotating globe or something like that, you can bring in your own motion graphics just by pulling them off the web. Really kind of sweet tool there. So highly recommend that. And media file, that should be obvious. That's where you add, movie clips, videos, images, or music. We've recombined all that into a single category. So it's easy to find and easy to bring stuff in. So if you need to bring in a clip, it's done. Oh, and then that clip was a format that I don't think Wirecast liked. I'll bring that back open. This is also cool. I don't know if I mentioned this, but all of this here is part of that web page tool, so we can actually update you with news, information, videos and so forth on this page. It's just a little like HTML web page that can be dynamically updated. So look for this. This is important. When you open the software, you'll be getting information and news here. This is just a good way for us to keep you informed as you use Wirecast. So you don't necessarily have to tune into me all the time to learn the latest information. And you'll also see previous projects and so forth on there. All right. Next, we talked about titles already. Those are as they were for the most part. And then virtual sets. I haven't. We continue to partner with Virtual Setworks, but if I will add those to this demo machine, so you have access to actually a lot of other cool virtual sets if you want to add those on. But the 3 built-in ones that come with Wirecast are still there, and this is just for the pro users. And that kind of covers, a lot of the basic stuff. I think I said I would cover replay and ISO. Honestly, this is a big topic, so I think I'd like to wait till next week's broadcast to get more into it. But you can download the demo and play around with it. Real quick, I can show you that it's pretty straightforward. If you have, this is again, both pro level features, so you need Wirecast Pro, but the demo version will let you play around with them, I believe. I think ISO is not going to work on the demo version. I need to check on that, I believe. I think there was we can't do ISO. You can't do ISO on the demo, so that will have to be me showing you in order for you to see how it works. But the basic rule here is that you can select whatever sources, live sources you have added, and use them as both an isolation clean recording file and also as and you can prep it for a replay. You can just use replay if you want for the program output, but if you want to have a separate individual file or camera or source that you're using for your replay, then you'll need to use that as an ISO replay. And you set it up as an isolation, and then you check this box configure for replay, and then it's not just an ISO, it's usable as a replay source, which is out of the main window. Before with Wirecast 6 in replay, it could only ever capture whatever was here. The replay would just basically, whatever's in the live window, you could replay that. But if you were on, say, camera A was in the live window and camera B was over here in the preview, you couldn't get a replay of what happened on camera B, alternate angles. Now with ISO, you can do that. But it's a lot of that's similar. The replay settings, this should look familiar from Wirecast 6. And you have this box to check for program replay. Again, just very similar to Wirecast 6 with some cool new hotkey functionality, which ties into our hotkey editor, which I haven't talked about yet. But if you need more than a program replay, more than just your program mix live window replay, you will need to add something as a source as an ISO. So you can add a source as an ISO and then prep that for a replay. And then it'll just record very similar off camera. So I'll spend more time on that next week because that's going to be a whole thing. But play around with that if you have access to it, or if you don't, then maybe request a trial license from us to see if it's something that you want to upgrade to. All right, let's talk real quick about the hotkey manager, because this is cool. And we'll talk, so what's a good example of this? I think what I'm going to do is we'll add a new hotkey. So this is, again, found in the preferences. You can add new hotkey, and you could call this your, start broadcast hotkey, if you like. We could call this, what I might do is actually add a shot before we get into this. So let's do 2 shots. I'm going to go here. We'll make it add my camera source. And then we'll add a text box, or we'll do a solid color. All right, so we've got our 2 sources here. And before you could still do the assign keyboard shortcuts that you could in 6. So depending on which ones you want, you could switch back and forth. And then, if I hit spacebar, I can take them live. Hit spacebar, take them live. So that's still the case. That hasn't changed in Wirecast 7. But you also have this new hotkey editor, which is up here. And these are global hotkeys, and you can basically say what you want to do. So if we're going to title this, let's call it our go live. And let's do a record shortcut. So this shortcut could be actually, let's do this. Let's make it camera 1. Okay. And camera A could just be our A key. Or I'm going to do Shift A. Okay. And we can make it global as well. And now I've got this hotkey, which I can assign to either of these. So let's make this is camera A. You should now see it on the list. I can make camera A my shortcut there. And that is Shift A, right? So I've got 2 for this one, Shift A. So instead of just the default 1 through 0 keys that you had access to before, you can now build your own quick commands in Wirecast. So again, we could add a live text box here, and we could do the hello world thing. Hello world. That's a little different than hello world. All right, so we can hit OK, add that in, and now let's say I want to scale that up. All right, and we can assign that the same keyboard shortcut for cam A. And that could be, you've got 2, you've got, hold on, Shift A, and that brings those up together. So it basically opens up the realm of assignable hotkeys that you can do. And now you're not limited to 1 through 0. I hope that makes sense. If you have any other questions about that, put them in the comments. Delink the scoreboard items so that they can be moved around. I assume you mean the text boxes from the scoreboard items. So that's a good feature suggestion. If we were to add a scoreboard. There we go. And you've got the home, visitor, and so forth. That's all coming in together. And it's all considered one unit. But one of the nice things about this is if you want to just delete those, you can, you'll still have this overall field here with the scores and stuff, but you could, overlay a text or title right on top of it and, scale that down. And those can easily be part of your scoreboard box and can be moved around together. If I select both in the same set, I could move them around together. So that's pretty handy. It's a little different, obviously, but I hope that is a little bit of a workaround for you. All right, you guys, I think unless you have other questions today, we'll probably call that a day. And next week, we'll try to tackle replay and ISO and any of the other stuff that I missed. I think we covered most of it between this week's broadcast and last week's broadcast. I showed you a lot of stuff that's changed and some of the new cool tools that you have. And there's going to be, as we play around with this more and get more time to try new stuff with it, there'll be more tips and power tips and tricks that I'll be able to share with you. I'm particularly interested in the web widget and the web source, because I think there's some neat stuff you can do with that, and I'd like to play around with some of the GIF creation tools and be able to maybe do some more animated elements, visual elements using this tool. So hopefully that was helpful. Thanks so much, you guys, and thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week, next Thursday, same time, Pacific time, 2:30 p.m. on Thursday, July 14th. Don't forget to sign up for the What's New in Wirecast webinar, which will be the same day at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And keep streaming. We'll see you next week.